Here we are with Photobooth number 3. So the good thing and the benefits to Photobooth number 3 is as big as it looks, it actually takes up a small footprint. So places like Union Hill and other locations where we can't do a pipe and drape booth, this booth is really good for that. It does just a small drape around the front, has 2 seats, and it's just a smaller area, smaller footprint. You can't fit as many people inside the booth as you can with our big pipe and drape booths that we typically use booth number 1 and 2 with. So this one, pretty big. It's kind of a beast. It's definitely a 2-person setup where 1 and 2 is a 1-person setup. When you're lifting this on and off, you definitely want to have 1 person on each side, and the cases are big as well. So once you have the booth all set up and ready to go, you're of course going to take your main power, run that to your closest venue outlet. Then you're going to plug your printer in. Your printer power is going to come up and plug in, and your printer signal cable. Printer signal cable is going to come up. We've got it marked right here, printer. You're just going to plug that in. Down underneath is where the fabric is for the drape that goes around the booth. The poles will be also with this, so you can put the side poles in, put the drape on, and then put the end cap poles on. Also extra paper and some other things are down in there just as extras. One thing you want to always make sure is the printer is slid all the way forward up against the catch tray. If it's not, the prints will come out and they'll fall down in this hole, and they're really difficult to get out of there. So that's one thing to check. Make sure that's forward and it's strapped down. When you go to change the ink on this one, make sure everything's out from behind it. Unstrap it and push the printer that way, and then the front drawer of the printer can come out so you can change the ink and paper on it. So once all that's set up, go ahead and turn it on. It does light up. There is a remote over here for the LED lighting that's down here. Not a big deal, just have it on random like it is. This one does not use an external flash. It uses the flash that's built into the camera. So once you do turn it on and it's connected, you'll want to pop the flash up. There is a little flash button here. We've got a little note on the side that does show you where to do that at. So I'm going to hit on. We've got that labeled really good. Once you have the top on, you're going to get a bolt out of here. This bolt goes right through this hole. There's a little tab right here, and you're going to take this bolt, slide that through and through the tab, and just hand tighten that down. What that does, it keeps the top half of the booth from falling forward. Once the drape is on, someone could grab on that drape, grab on that, and it could take the whole booth. So this kind of locks it down to the base, makes it all safe and secure. So make sure you do that and make sure it goes back in its bag. Once the computer's all on and up and ready, then go ahead and turn your camera on. Once the camera's on, you can turn the flash on. So if it does not come on when you hit the flash button, go ahead and put your finger on the shutter button on the face of it, and that should pop up and activate the flash. Right now, because where we're at, it's on program mode, so it's sensing that there's enough light for the booth. But as most events go, it gets darker and darker, and you're going to want that on. This booth doesn't work really well for open style booths because it only uses the internal flash. That flash is not strong enough for, say, an open air booth where we have the booth much farther away from the guests. If we do that, then we have to set up more lighting for it. So once everything's on, you can remove the lens cap. Now this booth is set on program mode. So on program mode, you don't have to focus it, but you do have to adjust the zoom. So you want to try and zoom it out nice and wide so it fits everybody in it. You can look through the eyepiece here and see where you're at. Get that adjusted. Sometimes you have to take the camera and kind of move it up. Make sure it's tight and get it all nice and centered. This Allen key right here is so if any of this loosens up, you can come in here and tighten all that down. Once everything's up and going and you're tested it, go ahead and just close the back. Take the keys out, just set them down in there and have that closed up so it looks nice. When you go to set up the drape, you're gonna have 3 poles right here. What you're gonna do is just slide them in the holes. And then the drape is just like a curtain, like a shower curtain. Just gonna kind of go back and forth. So usually what I'll do is I'll just do that. It's all ready to go. Slide it on. That way it spreads nice and easy. There should be 3 or 4 of these in the bottom. We've got them in black and white. And then once those are on, you just take the ends, go like that. That's how that works. All right, so we're around the front of the booth. One thing you want to always check is the lens. Kids, drunk people, all of that like to touch the lens. You can actually see, I don't know if you can on the camera, but there's actually some fingerprints. So there's a terry cloth in the booth. You can take and just clean the lens. If you don't have a terry cloth, you know, just kind of your shirt, something like that. In the back of the booth is, of course, your keypad. So you're going to get that out, unplug it, make sure you do plug it back in when you are done with it. Up top here, you've got the on-off. Turn that on. And these are touch screens, so you can operate it without this. It's just a little bit easier. So a lot of times you've got to hit the left mouse button, which is right there, to kind of activate it. We're going to come over to Darkroom. Start up Darkroom. Okay, it's up and going. It's going to show your artwork right here for your wedding. And then right down in the bottom left-hand corner, all you're going to do is just move the mouse down there. And if ever you don't have a connection with the camera, just make sure you go back. You can turn the camera off and then on. See if the computer recognizes it. You can unplug the USB cable out of the left side of the computer, reconnect it. The computer will recognize it at that time. You're going to hit start on the booth and always run a test on your booth. You don't have to run a test on every single one, the black and white, the retro, the colors, sepia, all of that. Just run one test, make sure it prints, and that way you're all ready to go. With this booth, you can print more prints. So if you hit the star up here, you can tell it how many more prints you want. So if you've got a large group, which this booth isn't really set up for large groups, you can print more copies. So we did our test print. We came over here, took a look at it, and it's a little bit different, obviously, because we're sitting here shooting in here. And we got Alex and Chloe in the background. Check the artwork, make sure everything is the proper artwork for that client of the day. And then we've got our test strips, and you guys are ready to go. At the end of the night, when you're all done with the event, you're going to exit out of the photo booth. And then we're going to be, let's see, we can completely actually exit out of the software. So you're going to go up to the top left corner and hit the drop down and go to close. You're going to take the USB and plug the USB in to the computer in the back. So that's going to pop up. And then on the desktop, there's Darkroom Prints. You're going to open that up. That's going to have all your images. And what you're going to do is you're going to look at, you're going to let it load. Once it's all loaded, you're going to look at the date and grab everything from that date. Now remember, if your photo booth goes beyond midnight, you're going to have 2 dates. You're going to have the date that the photo booth session started on, and the date that the photo booth sessions ended on. So wait for that green line to get all the way over, and then what we're going to do is we're going to copy all of the images over to the flash drive. That way on Monday or the next day, depending on when the event is, the office team can upload these images. They can review the images, make sure there's nothing, no nudity or anything explicit. Then they can upload them to the client's online photo album. So once that's all loaded, if it's not in the right order, you can hit date, and what that did is that brought up the latest images. And so what you're going to do, so that's today, so I'm going to take and just select that one, go down to the bottom, hit shift and select that. Selects all of them, and all you got to do is just drag and drop those over to the flash drive. And it's good to do that first before you break down other stuff, because sometimes it takes a while to load. So what you can do is start doing that. That way the computer's dumping the images while you're breaking down the drape or breaking down, you know, other stuff. Just be careful you don't unplug the booth while that is still downloading the images. Once that's done, you can just close out of all of that. Come over here, shut down the photo booth just like you normally would, right there, and you are good to go. And then you can start breaking down the booth. Make sure upon teardown, once the computer's off, turn the keyboard off, make sure you plug it in, put it back on the Velcro. You can remove the flash drive and lanyard always gets clipped back onto the clipboard. If it's our DJs that are doing the event, make sure you give it to the DJ. And then you can remove the printer signal cable and the printer power cable, which goes down in there. Turn the power off on the camera, and push the flash down on the camera as well. And make sure you put the lens cap on so it does protect it. Next, you're going to take and remove this bolt as well. Make sure you put the nut back on it, put it back up in its bag. And then your main power that's down inside, take this cord and re-plug it in up here. What that does is it keeps this cord just kind of out of the way when you're moving the case. Roll up your cord really nicely, put your power cord in the bottom of the case. Make sure you put your printer paper back in, your lamp back in, and you put your drape back in the bottom. Once it's all closed up, the keys for this booth should always be left sitting on top of it when it goes back in the case. You can split these, put them in their cases, get them all closed up, and it's all ready to go.